All right, guys, everybody have a seat. Get started. Turn it on.
Hey, nobody's bought my house yet. What are you people here for? Come on, it's owner financed at 5% for 30 years. How many places can you get that?
All right, guys, everybody grab a seat. Keep the noise level down. You're going to want to hear what Aaron has to say, I assure you, because me and him have spent hours and hours and hours at lunches talking about this stuff on end. So, for everybody who doesn't know, this is Aaron Norris. If you don't know who the Norris Group is, they're sort of the 800-pound gorilla of hard money lending, as many people refer them to. What's remarkable about the Norris Group is it's all private, right, still? It's all private money, meaning they take other people's retirement accounts and invest it in deals or personal money or whatever. They don't borrow from funds. Considering the size of the organization or the amount of capital they put out, it's a giant feat. Maybe I'll grow up and get there someday. However, Bruce has been around a long time. Aaron's dad, Bruce, has been around a long time in the real estate world. But Aaron came back. It's been 10 years now, right? Mic's off. Sorry, my fault. All the way up.
Testing. 04. Moved back from New York City in 04.
Okay, so now we're like 13 years in.
Yep.
And Aaron took Bruce's kind of semi-local name and basically made the company, from what I can tell, a household name, and it's at this point becoming a federal name because you guys are at the federal level getting involved in politics. At least your dad is.
Yeah.
And that by itself is no small feat because the type of output you see from the Norris Group, their quality of product, the branding, is to be desired in this industry. Most people don't treat it like the level of business they do, and so I want to dig into kind of not necessarily how they got there, but what Aaron advises on now, which is a lot of marketing, PR. It's kind of his world, and hopefully give you guys some advice that makes a difference in tweaking your company. So, guys, please help me welcome Aaron Norris. So, I'll let you just run with the 5 minutes of who you are and
how I got here.
How you got here.
How I try not to be a spoiled brat. I'm a retired actor. I moved to New York City in '97. The dream was to be on Broadway. I was a major in advertising, a minor at Cal State Fullerton. Was walking down the music hall to a music theory class, and I saw an art school in New York City. And I had been doing musical theater since I was 5. I'm like, you know what? Why not? I got in, moved to New York City at '97. It was so good for me. I got my ass kicked all over New York City. My best friend growing up was Mexican and Polish, and I had a Jewish friend. But in New York City, I lived in Harlem and Washington Heights, and there's no Mexican guys there. It's just you learn the difference between Puerto Rican, Venezuelan, Argentinian. Everyone's got their own parade. It was really important for me. I learned a lot. But long story short,
are you saying that like you would like thrust into a different environment and you had to like adapt?
Thank God, yeah. It scares me that if I would have stayed here, who I would have ended up being.
Okay.
You know what? I don't know if I would have been working for the Norris Group. So when I was in school, I was watching these Broadway shows, and I'm 19. I'm like, I'm about to get my ass kicked. These guys are freaking amazing. They've obviously been dancing since they were 5. And at the time, there were shows like Footloose going on, Aida, Thoroughly Modern Millie. I learned very quickly that I was going to have to pick up some tricks because it was going to take a long time. Sorry, I don't even know if you've ever known this. So I got into gymnastics, but I ended up getting injured as well. So I would have to go to Europe for 3 months to do 42nd Street on an injured ankle, and it didn't matter because you just go because you get a gig and you have to do it.
Is that like a prestige thing? If you said 42nd Street, is that important in a way, or just it's a gig you win?
It's just a gig in Europe. You take it because it's the only job you've been offered.
And you get to go to Europe.
Yeah, you get paid to tour the world, so that was fun. But I started to get injured more, and at the time, of course, I was a waiter in New York City.
Yeah, we all are for like years, right? Struggling.
Right. And I grew up doing flips with my dad, getting paid $0.25 an hour. And I'm only sharing this with you because we all come from different places, and that's one of the things that we'll start talking about. But I ended up falling into Wall Street doing merger and acquisition presentations at Lazard Frere in Rock Center. So I shared the same building with SNL. It was pretty awesome. Will Ferrell was in the elevator one time. I told him a joke and he
Really?
laughed. Yes.
And he laughed at a joke?
He did. It was amazing.
Hold on. Can you
life goals.
Can you give a slight elaboration on what the life is like for people who are in any way creative or interesting in the mergers and acquisitions world?
Actually, I had the most. It was all creative people. We had opera
Really?
people, dancers. It was all of us. It was the dream job. We worked from 5 to 1 in the morning, and they drove us home in black cars.
That is the exception to that whole world.
Oh my, totally.
Okay.
So I went from being a waiter, where in some shifts there would be 0 people that came through the doors, to at the time, when you're 21, making $25 an hour, and you get driven home in a black car, every night. It was a sweet gig.
You went from like living in Harlem to fancy again?
No, I was always very.
I feel like you're like Julie Roberts in Pretty Woman all of a
I
sudden.
refused. I refused to pay more than $600 a month in rent in New York City, which means I lived in some interesting places, including a hallway where at night the bricks would fall. It would crumble on my face. Yeah. I rented from a renter of a subletter. Don't do that, because 2 days later, he'd be like, "Yeah, you got to get out," and I had to find a place to live. I lived in an illegal basement apartment that didn't tell us that we had the entire 150-unit building telephone network in our apartment, and anytime somebody moved in or out, AT&T had to be in our apartment. That was interesting.
Oh my God, I would love to see that reaction.
And my last one was a 5-floor walk-up in Washington Heights. It was awesome.
5-floor walk-up?
5-floor walk-up. It was probably 1,400 square feet.
5-floor.
Yeah, 5-floor. So after you get off on the subway on 181st, I probably had to climb 7 flights. I had the most amazing calves. Anyway, so Wall Street acquisition and merger presentation, I really learned to love the data. I thought it was very interesting. Dad started working on market timing. He's like, "Hey, do you know how to do charts?" I'm like, "Do I know how to do charts?"
I got a report you need to do.
Yeah, he likes to watch me because I'm really fast with Excel, Word, PowerPoint, all that stuff. I just know all the shortcuts. It's just, I like to do it. I like making something complex and being able to communicate it simply. And it just worked out perfectly. So anyway, long story short, my mom in '04 found out she had bone cancer. At the time, I was getting close to like 3 Broadway shows, and it didn't matter anymore. I just needed a break. I was burned out. I moved back, and literally within probably a couple months, I found out I had to have ankle surgery. The very first show out of that, I did the West Coast premiere of Miss Saigon. I got hired, and I had to end up flipping in it. First day out, I went down, found out I had a torn disc and back arthritis, so my career was over and I hadn't known it. And luckily, I had sort of slid into marketing and PR. So I worked for an architectural lighting designer in downtown LA, bidding on projects all over the world, which I absolutely fell in love with, like the Burj Al Arab in UAE, like some really cool worldwide projects. And I was about to go back to JP Morgan Chase right before the downturn happened, and Dad was working on the California crash, and I had a really bad third interview with a lady who read me the riot act for no reason. She wasn't even going to be my boss, but if you've ever worked in the financial sector, you have to go through some serious background checks, like 2 rounds of finance background checks. You have to do blood work and all that stuff more than once. And she brought me in and said, I'm the real one who runs this. They're not going to tell you this. But I'm like, lady, oh my gosh, what's going on? And I was kvetching to Dad. And he's like, why don't you come work for me? And I never wanted to be the spoiled brat that got to work in the family business if I didn't have something to bring to the table. And it's been a really fun ride. So I'm going on 13 years. So there you go.
I think you're far from being the spoiled brat who, whether you agree or not, brat is a table.
I just don't want to be that kid. I'm very sensitive to that. People are like, man, I heard it doesn't bring anything to it.
Yeah, but like, so I totally get like where you're coming from that, but there is, so I met Aaron at a random event where Bruce is speaking, and I just walked up to him and said, hey, I've talked to you on Bigger Pockets, and we started talking. And one of the things that I didn't know at that time, because you came back in '04, and that was like an '08-ish, is the California crash, and like that you put that together, and basically made that look pretty. Like you made it look extremely marketable, like a high-level product, correct? Well,
at the time, it was, anybody who was in the education space, it was black and white. And one of the reasons I did that is because people were taking our stuff and running it through, their home copying machine. And it just, I mean, that was my dad's body of work. So I was doing annoying things like making it hard to copy because the gray would disappear, or if you've done printing, a full bleed means the color goes off the page. If you were going to copy my stuff, I was going to make it very painful and very expensive. But the report that we ended up working on together was 400 pages with probably over 700 charts. I spent a good probably at least a month and a half, 2 months straight. Dad was in Hawaii, sending me chapter and charts. I would work 15-hour days trying to barrel through that. So his goal with me coming on was, I want to be a California-specific company. This is what I love. This is the data I love. He's a total nerd. He really, charts mean something to him, and I'm always fascinated. There's a few of you who were in the Ontario event. It's always very interesting to get him on stage with somebody who's academic, because they'll talk charts, but charts feel like something to Dad, and it's a very different story. So that's what's fun.
So you took, and we talked about this outside of here, but you took the Wall Street, right, the high-level production, and brought it to real estate. Right. And I would say, at least from what I can tell, I don't know very many people that do that. We still don't see a lot of it. I mean, not knocking Andy, but he's got yellow flyers with black and white writing. But let that be said. We're trying to put this thing together. Andy's been calling me, and I haven't been helping him either. So, see? So Aaron knows how to make a company look professional. And in this industry, and I'm sure Aaron will agree, we see a lot of absolute hodgepodge garbage, and people are more concerned with setting up their LLC than what they look like to everybody else in the internet world.
It's a strategy. So it's funny. Somebody was in my office yesterday, and I do something called the investor roadmap, where I sit down with people for about a half an hour. You tell me if you're an introvert or an extrovert, how much money you've got, how much time you have to be in the business, and how experienced you are, and what your personal background is as far as work. And I'm going to throw as many ideas at you as possible on how to be hopefully successful faster. And he was a guy who's in LA, only had 30 grand. I'm like, you're going to have a hard time right now, but let's back into some other things. And he wanted to see examples. And since I own rentals, I had all these examples of marketing. And I had the corporate home investors had sent me a whole bunch of stuff. I had like personal letters that were sort of like on letterhead. And then I had yellow letter stuff. So it is a strategy to look busted. And hopefully you're doing it on purpose. But I don't know if a lot of people go for that. Yeah.
No, I have really bad handwriting, and the advantage of having really bad handwriting is when you make a bandit sign, it looks more real. Like we did this experiment for whatever reason. The shittier your handwriting is at a bandit sign, the more calls you get. And
so you have real data on that?
I have real data on that.
Wow.
I have real phone call data on that because I connected it to 2 different Google Voices to see what the output would be.
That's amazing. That's good.
And it's funny how bad, like when it's barely legible, the phone rings off the hook.
Wow.
Doesn't make any sense, I know. So like my business partner Clint, when I had the brokerage, so I had a brokerage with a partner before, and we were doing acquisition for Pintar, and so we were trying to find deals, and then we also had a product called Inland Empire Unlisted. So we would take all of, for anybody that's an agent, this is a good tactic, take all of the inventory out of Property Radar that's currently owned and not on the market by a flipper, and there's ways to find that data pretty easily, and then you create a website with all those addresses, and then you say, all these properties would be for sale shortly, call me. And then you get a whole lot of buyer leads. So we would take these signs and we put them in the neighborhoods where these properties were located and say 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 600K in this neighborhood with a phone number. And then we get all these calls because they think it's for sale by owner. And my partner Clint had really nice writing. His wife helped him write them, and they were like, no one called him. And then everyone
Hearts on
called
the
me.
eyes.
Yeah, totally. Everybody called me.
Yeah.
But so the broke thing's a strategy. It works in some facets, like the bandit signs, but it works really bad when you try and talk to an agent, a homeowner who needs to believe you have money.
An absentee property manager who's been in the business a long time and professional.
Yes.
That's probably going to look at that and go, oh, God,
Another one of these. So you do, so Aaron does presentations. You do presentations on marketing PR for PRSA, which is, what's it stand for?
The Public Relations Society of America. I am the Western District Chair, so I represent over 2,200 professionals from Hawaii to Colorado. It sounds fancy. I volunteer my time.
But So I want to get into some like real low level stuff that you guys can do today, because some of the stuff he puts out can be really high level, and then like the investor roadmap, you break it down to the basics. So if you were to start today, which I'm sure you've had this question before, you have zero budget.
Yep.
Within your zero budget, what would be your first steps?
My first step would be to really focus on brand. Decide where you want to be. One of the biggest mistakes I see investors do is they try to be too much too soon and too wide. So they're like, I'm going to be a flipper covering San Diego, Orange County, LA, Riverside, and San Bernardino. It's just, I think it's a lot easier to start smaller. And then they also try to be something that they're not. So this market is not comfortable for somebody who's an introvert. So when I talk to introverts who, I say door knocking, you immediately see their body language change. They get really uncomfortable. And if you called me and said, you're an introvert with no money, no experience, and you have no time to be in the business, I will say, this is not the right time for you. You're really going to hate your life, and you're not going to be successful. You will spend $70,000 on coaching program and not go anywhere, which is heartbreaking. So we have that conversation. But there's so many different ways to do this business. How do we back into something that you're going to end up liking, or at least be more successful at faster? And then backing into a brand. I mean, nowadays with social media, you don't have to have business cards even, really. You don't even have to have a website.
I don't use them. I share my contact on my phone now.
Yeah, you need. So I like to focus on brand and try to get people down to a few strategies that I think they're going to be able to focus on quickly to feel more successful faster.
So I've also noticed, and I think there's probably people in this room guilty of this, I've seen it, people try and post on Facebook and whatever social media, and they just sort of grab garbage from the internet and post it out. What's your take on that?
So the algorithms are changing. So for those of us who've been on Facebook a long time, Facebook made some changes about a couple years ago where you'll notice the views on your business pages have gone down substantially. It's pay to play. The free ride on social media is absolutely over, and it has been for a couple of years. So you just have to know that, and every social media channel needs to have a job for you. And I'll give you an example. Twitter. Is there anybody super active on Twitter? I see you. Okay, 2 in the room. How many have had an actual deal come from Twitter?
I got money, no deals.
Okay, that's better than I've ever heard. So I use it for relationship building with the press. So I run a blog, I run a news blog. Every Friday I do a video on the biggest headlines in real estate and release it. And whenever we tag not only the outlet, but we often tag the journalist who wrote it to give them credit, because journalists are working really hard for not getting paid a lot. It's just a rough time to be a journalist.
Backlinking's terrible for them right now. People rip stuff all the time.
Yeah, and there's a really good book called Trust Me, I'm Lying.
It's an amazing book.
Yes, it's by Ryan Holiday, and it's about a guy who basically fooled the media into picking up bogus stories, and why fake news is even a thing, why it can happen, and just it's a mess.
By the way, you need to listen to Reply All. Just did an interview with the head of American Apparel in his new venture, and they interview Ryan during it. It's like edge of your seat, like goodness.
Okay.
But anyway, we gave away that book at Lance's event. That was in that stack. Actually.
Oh, okay. Great book. I was going somewhere with that though.
So you're talking about. This always happens when we talk.
I know, sorry.
So we're talking about branding, fooling the media, PR, tagging people. You tag people.
And Facebook. So I assign a job. So Twitter for me is news stories. It's building relationships with Twitter. So when I have a story that I want to pitch them, I have a list of, if I'm pitching a journalist and I really want them to cover it, I'm going to hit them up via LinkedIn, Twitter. But Twitter is just a way for me to be in front of them in a non-offensive way ongoing. If you're that person who's just been like on Facebook, just so you know, after 5,000, you get blocked on your personal page anyway. But Facebook also knows that you're just spam. You're just creating a bunch of junk. And you can't be good friends and have a real network of people of 5,000 people. You just can't. You can't manage it. It's not strategic. And all these systems know this. Twitter can look at me and, my Twitter account and be like, wow, he's got 1 million followers, but why are 900,000 of them in the Philippines? That's weird.
They're all bots.
And why is everybody showing their boobs in the pictures?
Totally.
So LinkedIn is the same way. Like, they all have an ultimate goal. You just have to assume that they're trying to be the most useful, clutter-free service, and if they're deemed irrelevant, then they lose money. They're going to make money on advertising. The more specific and real networks you create, the more valuable it is for you and for them.
Vine learned that very quickly.
Yeah. So I just assign a job and just make networks that make sense. You're here networking. You don't know any of these people. You need to talk to people, build relationships. We just hired a new salesperson, and the entire goal this year is to create good customer experiences, and a lot of it is going to be with building in phone into our annual process for clients.
So you said give it a job,
Yep.
and I think that's super important, and I don't think people may fully understand what that is. So from a community standpoint, right, because that's what you're trying to build online. Social media is a community. It's not a place you throw stuff.
Right.
What is a simple play like on a community? What have you
Sure.
seen that works?
So I guess I'll do it this way. So we're in our 10th year of a radio show. I thought I had earned the right, since I do a radio show, and I'm very proud of it and the content we create. And we podcast it. I thought I had earned the right to email you all once a week. I used to call it Tuesdays with T&G. My readership went down by 10% 4 weeks in a row, and I stopped. You basically told me, I don't care. Why does that matter now? Because Microsoft has folders called clutter. Anybody use Outlook and notice the clutter folder? If you delete my email, I don't know what the algorithm is, a few times without opening my email, I end up in clutter. I personally delete 99% of everything that ends up in that folder. You're basically glorified spam. So the radio show, for the people who are really hardcore Norris fans that want to engage with me more, it's very rare that I email my entire list. Very rare. I just did probably most once a month. I do geo-targeted emails. Facebook.
What's geo-targeting?
Geo-targeted means if I'm speaking in Los Angeles, I'm not emailing people in Sacramento, hey, we're going to be in Los Angeles today. Nobody cares. So the more relevant you can be and targeting people and something that's useful, the higher open rate. I enjoy very high open rate on emails.
What's open rate?
It's in the 30 and 40% range.
No. What does it mean?
Oh, open rate means how many people are actually opening my emails and reading them.
And then how do you find out what that is?
You have to have good email software that can show you that.
So what's a good free or cheap email software?
I love MailChimp. I just think it's super easy. And a lot of these services have a lot of great training. So if you don't know how to keep out of trouble, they'll train you for relatively free, and they have beautiful mobile-friendly templates. You don't have to think about coding anymore. Remember back in the day when you had to spend like $20,000 on a Flash website?
Or buy somebody's HTML template to put in your email?
Right, and I can get a website up now in 3 days for under $500. Be mobile-friendly, look beautiful. Yeah.
So we talked about a platform, so emails to platform you're talking about, right, as an example. And the community are the members that have sort of listened to the radio show and basically subscribed to that stuff, the community you built.
Right.
Right.
So I have different audiences. At the Norris Group, we have people who are interested in education, people who do hard money with us, and then trusted investors. I have people who've been with our company for over 20 years, well before I came there, and I can't treat them all the same. So I have 3 very distinct funnels. So in marketing nerdiness, language, a funnel is just a concept of how do you get somebody from the top of the funnel, just general awareness, and drive them down this funnel to where eventually, some people would say the bottom of the funnel is when somebody does a sale, but the bottom of my funnel is how do I turn you into a raving fan to do my marketing work for me?
Because you need the 1,000 true fans to keep it going.
That's right.
So, and if you haven't read Kevin Kelly's Medium post on 1,000 true fans, I highly suggest it to anybody that's new. So we're talking about categories. So here we have stickers, right? And you put your sticker on to see what category you're in, which is a good example of how we separate people, compartmentalize them in this business. And so if you're starting from day one, you should be compartmentalizing people even if they don't have a job yet, because you haven't given them a job yet. And so Aaron's talking about email as a medium because email, for whatever, still seems to be the most effective and profitable medium.
It really is. If you don't abuse it, it can be very effective. And I think a lot of marketers completely disagree with me. I know people in my industry who email every other day, and I'm just like, you're spam. I mean, is there somebody that hardcore that, I don't know, it just seems so arrogant, like you are so into me right now? I just don't know anybody who's earned the right, I mean, even people I really like, really, every other day, would you?
Like even, so do you get AppSumo emails?
No.
Okay, so AppSumo is like a thing that offers a bunch of tools to people, and they basically give them a discount. It's like the one email, the one I would feel guilty about unsubscribing or deleting, right? I read them all because like I know that after 60 of them, there's going to be a deal. Now, everything else, Matt deletes because we use Front, and Matt deletes it before I even see it. So it's literally not even getting through that filter unless I want it, and then he's instructed to give it to me because it's in a separate column.
So you've delegated deleting email, so you would never even know that these emails show up.
No, and so then if we miss stuff, right? We created a new category called wholesale, and we created a new category called events. Yep. And so if there's Matt puts all the events in there and I go through them, he puts all the wholesale in there and I go through them, right? Okay. So from a community aspect, email, and we experienced the same thing, seems to be the best community builder. Now, some people in here will call us and ask to be back on our list, stuff like that, if they moved or whatever. On the social media side, right? Social media is more for what? What's its general job?
So friends and family is for Facebook. Facebook is for friends and family. So most people are on Facebook just for that. And you as a business, why have you earned the right to be there? I think people are approaching that platform wrong, especially in business. Realtors ruin everything. They really do. They ruined LinkedIn for me 2 years ago, but 2 years before that, I'm like, oh my gosh. And now it's Facebook Live. People, no, I just can't.
We just did a Facebook Live interview with what's his name? Who's the head of the board member? With Paco.
Okay, was it good?
It was like 10 minutes, but I was kind of laughing about it because it's the first thing I thought of was I appreciated that he came by, like super nice dude. And he's on the board or whatever at Realtors, but same thing. I was like, oh man, Realtors ruin everything.
Well, it's live video has its time and place, but in my experience, when it comes to social media and when you're building a culture and a brand, it's like this event. Everybody knows at a certain time of a month they're going to get here. It's organized. They know what to experience. And I don't know, there's just something easy and relaxing about that when you never know when it's going to happen. And I literally went through my phone last week. I've got this new thing. I'm on a media diet, number one. What are the chances you really need to read news 4 times a day? I was so stressed out during the election, I'm not even kidding you. And I really had to take a step back and be like, why am I doing that? If something's that important, it can wait until the morning when I read news, and I could be done for the day. It was really freeing. And then I went through my phone, I'm like, you know when you do the updates on your phone and then magically your phone starts vibrating, and then even though your phone's out of your pocket, your leg is vibrating because they have a word for it now. It's like phantom buzzing.
Yeah, phantom.
I just went through and I unsubscribed from all the notifications. What are the chances you really need to get notified at any one time? It's not.
But then what does that tell you about that platform then?
It's everything. It's YouTube, Facebook. Everyone's trying to say, hey, somebody notified you. Hey, somebody wants to talk to you.
But I mean, if that's the case, right, that means there's too much noise.
Too much noise.
Nothing's going to happen.
Right.
So that's useless.
Right.
So Instagram, Twitter, any of this stuff useful?
Facebook is probably my favorite, but I approach it very carefully. So if you were to subscribe, if you were trying to friend me, you'll probably notice you hang out there a long time. I finally just got to Facebook after a month. If I don't immediately know you and recognize you from you coming up and saying hi to me, you just hang out in this pit until I get to it. And when I do friend you, I will typically send you a note. I'll see what you do. I'll put you in CRM, copy all your email information down. I will copy your picture. I'm very visual.
Use a tool, or you rip it?
Microsoft Dynamics CRM. So I'm very careful to then connect to you to LinkedIn, see how I think we might connect together, and I put you on a list. So this is a little inside secret, how to get around some of Facebook's stuff for your business. So we have a Norris Group Facebook page. We've got thousands of followers, whatever. I don't pay for ads on Facebook right now. I don't find it super effective. But what I do if I'm speaking a specific location, so you friend me, you're from the Inland Empire, I put you in the Riverside list. Next time I'm in Riverside and I have an event I think you would like, I invite you, only people in this area, to that event on my business page. So I create an event on my business page and then invite my personal friends to there. So hopefully Facebook is seeing me as not irrelevant. They probably hate what I'm doing. I don't know how much longer it's going to last. But it's sweet because you say invite, and I sort it by list. San Diego, boom, I can invite 300 people in a click instead of having to sit there and be like 1, 2. I think they're from San Diego.
Hold on. I missed that.
Oh, and it's a good one.
Okay,
It's a good tip.
Back that up.
Okay.
Like I kind of got it, but I
Okay,
understand the
you friend me. We're
Okay.
brand new on Facebook.
Okay.
I say friend you, and then I've created a list that's called Riverside.
Okay.
And I create a list called Wholesalers.
Okay.
On Facebook.
On Facebook.
On Facebook, on your personal.
You can create
Facebook
lists
event.
on Facebook on the left-hand side, correct?
Yes. Ends up where the like button is. There's right next to it. I forget what it's called, but there's a drop-down menu. You might not have ever seen it existed. You drop it down and you create specific lists, and that's where you put people in there. So then on your business page, if you have an event coming up, you create the event, how Facebook wants you to create it, and then you only invite the people that are relevant to that event. People will so thank you for it, and your family and your friends will like you better. I don't know about you. I actually have 2 Facebook pages.
So you're pushing yourself to the front page of everybody else's Facebook because you're using geolocation filters with the event.
Yep.
And you're crossing over from your business page to your personal page because they're related.
Yep.
Did everybody catch that? So like he says, these are all my friends, and then he creates an event because your business page is related to you as a person, and then Facebook says, well, you know these people, so it's okay for you to invite them, and then he makes it look pretty for Facebook, and then goes to his list, which is geo-targeted, meaning location-based only, and then because it's geo-targeted, his conversion rate is higher, which means more people look at it, which means his shit goes straight to the front of his Facebook page for branding, even if they're not in the area, because all the other people in the feed see it now.
Yep. And Facebook, I'm always thinking very long term. So if Facebook isn't there yet, they will appreciate that I've gone the extra step. I've been doing this for years, and they've just really started to lock it down. And it's just clear that they want to make money on everything. And I haven't noticed a high enough ROI. So for me, it's about making the most relevant network for me, building solid relationships, and making sure when I am communicating with people, it's something that they might actually want and like.
Okay, so we've kind of established that email and Facebook are the preferred or usable platforms.
Right.
So you'd want to focus your energy there.
Right.
Now, the one thing that I think you'll like this. The one thing that people make the mistake of, I think, is that they create social media that it doesn't do anything, right? They put garbage on it.
Yes.
It doesn't
Yeah.
So bad social media is worse than no social media.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just creating noise and sharing stuff that's irrelevant, if you're not building your brand, and that's why I started with brand. What does brand mean? That's why I want to take this backwards. Brand? Okay, brand is what other people think about you. How about that?
What do you put out into the world?
No, it's what
No.
people think about you. You can influence them by what you put out
Okay.
there, but excuse the language, if you're an asshole, that's your brand. If
Yeah.
I meet you and you're a jerk and you brush me off, and then you find out later I don't know.
Well, at least we established my brand.
Right, at least I'm branded the a-hole of the room. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'll say this to realtors. I talk to a lot of realtor groups, and I'm like, what are you known for? I know people in Riverside that they have completely captured parts of my mind when it comes to historic homes in Riverside. I know that that's their wheelhouse, and if I wanted to be, like, if I had a friend, like a true friend, come to me and say they wanted to lead them, like, hey, go to this gal. She's the most awesome, and this is all she does. Or maybe a specific geographic region like Orange Crest, high-end homes over $3 million in Riverside. God bless you. You know, there is a guy that specializes in that, and he happens to work in Orange County, Palm Springs, and Riverside. That's his wheelhouse.
He also goes to a hell of a lot of charity events to meet all those people.
Sure does, but it pays off, buddy. So, you know, what's your brand is what other people think. You can influence that by creating a logo, creating a picture that's consistent across all your social media, showing up at community events, you know, just presenting yourself in a way that's consistent. You be yourself. You decide what you want to be good at and prove that you're the expert.
But so what we're kind of talking about is creating content, right?
Yeah.
And so if we're talking about creating content, and let's just assume that we're using Facebook and email as our only medium, right? Because those are easy to manage for most people. And then we're talking about brand, right? Which is like what you look like, logo, same across all platforms. Now you have to put something on there.
Right.
So how does somebody who has no money, right? They got lots of time. They got no money. They're interested in this business. And how do they, without looking like a douche, put content out into the world?
Okay, this is a good question. I have 2 Facebook pages. One is for basically my acting career and prior. Those were all the really embarrassing pictures I were at with the bad step haircut. The other one is strictly for work. I have people who will only message me on Facebook Messenger for some reason. So I am there because I engage customers there. That's where they want to meet me. Great. But I've approached Facebook for my business very differently than I do my friends and family page. Why I bring that up is, say you're just getting in the business. I know when I was trying to post stuff on my actor friends, I'm like, hey, I'm in real estate. They're whatever, Aaron. Like, it's not the crowd. You really have to create, you're creating a brand, and you're hopefully going to be creating networks around that. The other thing is Facebook, because it's more friends and family, you're posting very private pictures of your family. It might not always be appropriate. I always say if Britney Spears can get robbed by tweeting, so can you. Like, hey, I'm going to Hawaii for 2 weeks, and you've friended a whole bunch of people you don't know. It's not smart. So you really sort of have to think about safety as well. So you could very well just start. I'm an early adopter. So one of the reasons I separated the two, because at the time Facebook didn't have a way to really segment your audience. There is a way to sort of create different audiences on Facebook now. You can do it. And there are times that I wish that I could tell my actor friends that decided to give up and move to LA, which happened today.
Really?
Yeah, happened today. She's in business now, doing something totally different. It would be nice for me to invite them, but oh well, because it is more personal. It is nice to show on Facebook a personal side. Do I want everybody all up in my personal business at all times?
Probably not.
Probably not for business.
Yeah.
So, and you have to think as a flipper. What network would you create? If you're creating a business, what is going to be your outward message? Are you creating videos like, look at this a-hole, look at this hoarder, isn't this horrible? They're disgusting. Are you going to friend the person that you just bought their house? Seriously, in public relations, one of the reasons I like to study it is it really talks about, they call it publics, or your audience. For real estate investors, you've got a few different audiences, and you have to make choices. One of the reasons I really like working with nonprofits, it's one of the most challenging because of how many audiences you have to deal with. You've got media, you've got your board, you've got your internal staff, your donors, the people you serve. If I'm the Rape Crisis Center in Riverside, who is your Facebook message marketing to? Is it people who are victims of rape and you're trying to get them to call? Or is it donors and you're trying to develop donor relations? That page can't be both.
No, it has to be extremely segmented.
It's got to be focused. So when you're approaching a platform like Facebook, you really do have to be focused. So back to your question about content, you really have to back into your brand. If you want to be known for those historic houses, when I talk to realtors, I'm like, you need to know these neighborhoods. Like, I grew up in Riverside, and I was part of the Camp Anza project. Oh, this is a great group. Has anybody heard of Camp Anza?
It's kind of a cool thing.
Okay. Camp Anza was a World War II training facility out in the Arlanza area of Riverside. If you drive down in the houses, they look really strange. They're actually old barracks that are cut in half and just shifted. But there's like the old officers, the Colored Officers Club. There's so much history over there, and a lot of stars came through this area on their way to the Pacific Rim in World War II. I was part of the Leadership Riverside class at the Chamber that did a video to save it, and they turned the old Officers Club into a rec center, and then around it they built 31 low-income veteran housing. If I'm a realtor working in that area, what a special thing. I can create a video and be like, hey, did you know this existed? And get really excited about the history. If you're a realtor and you think what you bring to the table is access to the MLS, you're doing it wrong. Because artificial intelligence is about to kick you out of the business.
Well, your job's dead in 10 years anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So you better be offering a lot more than access to the MLS, or you're dead in the water anyway. So what do you own in the minds of your potential client? If I was a realtor, I would handle Facebook differently. But as an investor, it's networking with hard money lenders. It's networking with people who might end up funding me. And on the business page, maybe I would use the business page more for trying to go after leads.
So I'm going to expand upon that. I know this is Aaron's interview, but I got some ideas while he's talking.
Great.
So maybe if you're looking to do deals, but you've never done a deal, you go visit a lot of other people's deals and take pictures of them, and you visited them, and that's content you can post, right? Like Aaron brought up, like meeting with people. So you're meeting with hard money lenders, whoever you're networking with, but people want to see the content. Everybody loves the flipped house photos, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you can post somebody else's flipped house photo as like, hey, I went and met so-and-so at his project. And then people can see it, and then that starts to sort of build that audience, if that's what you're looking for from a capital standpoint. But then that's important, right? Raising money is very different than finding a deal.
Correct. And actually, while you're at it, while you're checking out other people's deal, why not walk the comp? So walking the comp is a concept of maybe it's not your deal that you found, but maybe you found another investor and they're fixing it up. Take what they bought the property for and do a mailer in that vicinity and say, hey, somebody just bought this, I'd like to buy your property. Somebody just bought this for, $100,000. The hardest comp, if you will, is the first one because you've got proof that somebody else did it. So use other people's comps and buy your own.
You act like you've experienced that from 2009 or something.
Yeah, exactly.
When I find myself arguing with an appraiser saying, no, Bruce Norris just flipped his house right around the corner, and he says your house is worth $20,000 less than his house because you put linoleum in the kitchen, not tile.
Oh, that was a rough year. Yeah,
that was a brutal year.
We were overdoing the rehabs, and the appraisers just wouldn't go for it.
Oh, and then I got kicked in the teeth for it even more. While it's right behind you. I'm like, God
Linoleum.
damn it. But so the walk the comp thing Aaron brought up, we used to do it in real estate as a realtor when there was all REOs. When I worked with Lance, he would just say, hey, just do a mailer on my listing.
Yeah.
And then you'd send a mailer. So that's a way to give content.
Before and after photos are always really great, and I think a very neutral way to show off what you do. It's probably the most engagement I see from investors on platforms. So you show before and after pictures, and everyone just loves those shows. Come on, it's just awesome, and I love to see how people get creative. Listen, I can still drive down the street and tell rehabs my dad did in the 80s because he had one palette. It was medium blue trim on a white house, and to this day, it's stained in my mind. The linoleum that he used in any house, and it didn't matter if it was mid-century or like new construction in 1980. It was all the same palette.
Do you remember the pushback from realtors, like with the first ones in 09? Like, why are they all gray?
Right. Yeah, we've come a long way, and it just with all these DIY network stuff, things have gotten a lot prettier too.
Yeah. Well, you saw the stuff change like a year later, like the way you guys put out. So we're gonna start running over time, but I want to, so people have an idea of where to go with that. Okay. We had a meeting with Bruce Barber, who's now our he's gonna be handling like I can't even say PR. He monetizes what we do here, right? So he's gonna help bring sponsorship money into the club. So that we can like up production and like make this thing even better. And the thing he brought up, which I've never heard somebody say, is taste, touch, and tone. Okay. So can you elaborate on like what that would mean for an investor?
Is he talking about engaging as many senses as possible in the process?
He was saying so he was saying taste like if what's your what's the like the audience taste is like how like are you wealthy, are you super broke? Touch, like how do you touch people? And like tone, like what's the tone you're putting out into the world? Okay. And like so you kind of brought that up, like talking about like what you put out on Facebook,
right? Your brand and what you decide to get good at, and a tone. There is, and it's hard to teach. So I mean, before we started talking live, I congratulated him and Todd, for creating a culture. It's hard to create a culture. I can tell in the room there's an excitement, there's an expectation that you're not going to get sold here. It's hard to create that expectation and that brand. So you're ready to have that conversation, because when you first get started, it's sort of hard because you're trying to figure out what your voice is. I have an assistant. He's really good at production, but he doesn't get my tone when I'm communicating. So you do create a voice that's uniquely you, and it has to be authentic.
How do you and I don't know because we do it through experiment. Have you ever worked with somebody or seen somebody actually create it by manufacturing it?
No, and I think it's the wrong way to look at it. I think there has to be an authenticity or it feels forced. And the worst is when they start, when you start doing live streaming and they're uncomfortable. If you're uncomfortable doing video, chances are your audience is going to be uncomfortable. So you can just tell if it's not them. It feels fabricated and false, and it feels like a sales pitch. It's got to be authentic.
So authenticity is important on what you put out into the world. Like,
right.
And I guess that's not where I was driving, but it's where I wanted to end up. Like I hadn't considered that. Like the authenticity. Because you've seen bad stuff, I've seen bad stuff. Like when it's like a red flag immediately as soon as you see garbage. Right. And so like I guess it's sort of like being true to yourself, right? If you're gonna put it out into the world, be true to who you are.
And you need to be consistent. So if you switch tones all of a sudden, so we have a very specific brand. So Dad has sort of created the tone for the company. I've picked up and maybe given that a little bit more of a public voice. But everybody internally in our company understands that we handle clients and situations and hard problems. I think one of the most proud moments I've ever had, and I'll just share this because it goes beyond communications is really important, and it's all encompassing the culture you create. We did a rehab. I think we took over a home. We foreclosed on a home in '06. It was in Moreno Valley. It was a custom home that didn't get finished. We ended up hiring a contractor who did not know what they were doing, and they built the bathrooms without something was wrong with the backboard, or there wasn't backboard in the bathrooms. Mold got created. So I came into the office one day, and we had just hired, and Rhonda, who's been with the company since it first started, she's like, "Tell Aaron, that's not how the Norris Group does it." I was like, "What? What's going on?" She's like, "This guy who bought a house like a year ago just called. It looks like there's mold in the place." And I'm like, "We got to get him out. What's the number?" So within the day, I had the people moved out to a hotel. We were getting an inspection done, but I didn't even have to say that. Rhonda already knew how we were going to treat that customer, the experience. So it's not just the audience, it's the people that you're working with. You know, in negotiating, where it's like you don't negotiate up front, because if you do, you're always going to have to negotiate. It's sort of like that when you're creating a brand and a voice.
Okay, so I'm going to ask another 10 minutes worth of questions, because actually you reminded me of something really important. So if you have to leave, just quietly walk out. But you brought up a story that I've heard several times, okay, and one of the important things that you're presenting to the world, or new people you meet and whatever, is sort of like a refined version of whatever. It's like when I'm asking Aaron questions here, like I didn't think of these ahead of time. Like, we've talked so much, I got an idea of where to go, but I didn't it's not canned, and Aaron's responses aren't canned, right? We're talking off the cuff about different stuff, but that story is canned. That is a story that you've repeated over and over again.
It's a best case scenario.
But I brought it up because it's important for people to have those. So one of the things people talk about in marketing is like a series of what do they call them?
Case studies.
Case studies. Yeah, like I've seen Ramit Sethi talk about like a lot of his stuff. So like that's a story, and I think your dad's probably got 20 of them or so. I've heard him say.
Yeah, he's got a lot.
He's got a lot of them that are refined. He knows how to tell it. Whatever. Whatever your online brand is, or whatever you put out into the world, you need to have like this refined story. So like when you guys are choosing the story, and I know it's usually from like the extremes that come up in the office, but do you think much about like how you start refining the story to tell people? Because it's supposed to create an emotion and create an action. That's the point of it, and it's not a bad thing. You're supposed to have it in place so that you can convey your point.
Right.
So how do you come up with those, or how do you decide which ones you're going to repeat?
I think the ones that are the best are just the ones that are authentic. We all have our own experiences. Like, I used to be an actor. So, I get to tell that story, and hopefully it motivates people. I can't recreate that. I can't create it. I actually had this with another club owner today. She was getting a complaint from somebody like, "Oh, they're complaining that your dad has the same story." I'm like, tell them not to come, or give me their email, and I'll give them a hard time. Those are just the stories. If they don't get it, they don't get it.
Yeah.
But they're your best stories because they're the most meaningful. They meant the most to you. It had impact on the people. You have your favorite stories. And you live them and you create them. And if you don't have stories, you're not living, right?
But they're also made to tell, like, you make them better by the way you tell them. I could tell you a story and it'll sound like shit.
Oh, okay.
Right? So you guys refine them so you don't, because
Okay.
a lot of stuff happened,
Right.
but you chose the details.
Right.
So is there any method you go about doing that, or is it just sort of like, well, we notice that people react this way when we say this part?
I guess I don't think about it like that. I like storytelling. I'm super shy. So no, I guess I don't think too much about it. Just try to make it short and sweet, especially in today's world. You got about a minute time span before people tune out.
I've already tuned out.
Yeah, probably.
No. but I on the tone in which you put it in the world, I want to bring that up because I think that's important. So before we go, I'm going to do the Tim Ferriss thing and ask, do you have something? Because you guys have products to offer, you have new stuff you've launched, you have charities you work on, you have all kinds of stuff. So do you have an ask for the audience or?
Yes, I have one business related and one fun related. We are probably going to be expanding up into Fresno in the next couple months, and I am looking for appraisers. Whenever possible, I don't like to go through the companies that take half and then pass what's left on to the appraiser. I like to work with people that know what they're doing and give them the full fee. So if anybody happens to know some really good appraisers that understand what we do and ARV and all that kind of fun stuff, I'd love to know. The second one, I am board chair of Community Connect. We run the 211 hotline. And if you don't know what 211 hotline is, I'll give you an example of how I used it with an investor. I had an investor call me from Hemet, and he's rather colorful, and he said, I didn't believe this woman was homeless, and he basically said, prove it. She brought him out to the middle of a field, and sure enough, she was. And I told him to call 211. 211 is a health and human services hotline, so it's not emergency. But what it does, it allows you to offer a bundle of services in one phone call, because needs are sometimes complex. So in that one call, the operator could give them information on a food pantry, the local shelter, all geo-targeted to their area. So pretty cool. If you don't know it, it's a really great resource for real estate investors, and it's in every county. We just happen to be in Riverside County. But on my 40th birthday, on March 31st, Friday, there is what we have. It's a pub crawl. You basically get to hang out with people for 3 hours, crawling around downtown Riverside. It's $30. You get discount drinks, free appetizers.
Tyler just handed it to us and goes, "We need to sponsor this." Like, he handed it to us.
Well, there's groups. You just put groups together. So if you guys are interested and get 30 people together, you can have your own group, and it's just a really fun night.
Can I commit to that in front of the audience?
You don't have to commit to anything. You just
So, okay, we are going to create a Facebook page, a meetup page, all right? I want everybody who's interested in this pub crawl, because it's coming up on the 31st,
the 31st, yeah.
to RSVP, and as long as we get enough people, we'll buy all the tickets, and then everybody can buy them from us or whatever, so we can do like in a big group.
Very cool. It's a really fun night. I do it to say thank you to people who have networked with me over the years, and with my 40th birthday afterwards, we're going to Mario's and just hanging out for the night.
I literally, Todd goes, "Norris group's on here. What's up with this thing?" Because Tyler brought it to us, and I'm like, I don't know. What's up with this thing? So now you actually answered a question from earlier today.
Okay.
Now, we've talked a lot about marketing, and it's your job for your company. It's not a for-hire thing. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned the investor, what's your thing called internally? The
Investor Roadmap.
Investor Roadmap. Okay, so when people, if somebody was interested in working on that,
Sure.
how do they do that?
You can just go to thenorrisgroup.com, call the office, give me a call, or shoot me an email at Aaron. Sorry, I need to put my East Coast voice on. Aaron. If you say Aaron in New York, they're like the girl. AARON, like the Old Testament Aaron, at thenorrisgroup.com. And we can go back and forth about times, and I'll just do it. It's fun. I love doing it. I did one that ended up being an hour yesterday, and I just got the coolest testimonial today.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. All I ask is afterwards, here's a little marketing thing. I will give you my time, and I will throw as many solutions at you, and hopefully if you've had a good experience, you give me a great review on social media.
That's a good trade.
You're welcome.
All right, guys. Can we thank Aaron Norris for being here? Closing remarks? Good? Closing remarks?
Closing remarks. Was that great?
It's all right?